has been welcomed by President Erdogan of Turkey on his first visit since the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The Turkish leader had led the international community's outrage at the killing and the ostracism of Prince Mohammed bin Salman that followed. Erdogan at the time blamed it on the highest levels of the Saudi government. Prince Mohammed bin Salman denies any involvement in the murder, however. A statement issued following last night's meeting said the two countries had strongly emphasised a joint determination to start a new era of cooperation. To reflect on this, I'm joined by Mohammed Okda, the founder and director of Insight into Crisis, a conflict advisory. Mohammed was also a close friend of Jamal Khashoggi's. Welcome to the programme, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Can I start by asking for your reaction to this visit, this meeting between the Saudi Crown Prince and Turkey's leader?
To simply discussed, honestly, it is shocking but understandable why it's happening, but still disgusting. It really infuriates everyone who knew Jamal and everyone who supports the freedom of the press and the freedom of opinion, and of course democracy around the world and around the region. It is quite uncomforting to see that happening, particularly MBS going to what I would like to say the scene of the crime and being welcomed there with hugs and smiles and business deals. It is quite a scene to see this just 3.5 years after Jamal was murdered in Istanbul.
You say disgusted, but you know why it's happening. This comes after nearly 10 years of friction between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. What do you make of the timing of this so-called new era?
Well, President Erdogan and Turkey is in a very tough spot. He has election coming next year. There's a public unhappiness with the current economic crisis in Turkey. The Turkish currency lost more than 60% of its value over the last year and a half. Inflation, by their own measures, is north of 70%. The currency is still going lower. Expectation this year, and has an election next year. President Erdogan and the Turkish authorities had took the side of the people when the Arab Spring started a little bit over 10 years ago, and that created a friction between them, all the regional power in the Middle East, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Israel. And clearly the Arab Spring had turned into an Arab winter, and more or less more of democracy movement had failed. I mean, we can look even in Tunisia now and we say democracy had failed there as well, which was the last hope for the Arab Spring. And I think the Turkish authority are recalibrated their policies about 2 years ago and started creating a reconciliation effort with these countries, and they already reconciled with Egypt and UAE and Israel and Saudi Arabia. And Erdogan was in Saudi Arabia, I think, in April, and also the UAE. And they're building on that. They need the money. They need the investment in Turkey to shore up their economy before the election and create an atmosphere of stability vis-a-vis the currency and investment and the energy crisis and all of that. So they are in a very tough spot, but still, it contradicts everything President Erdogan said 3.5 years ago when Jamal was murdered. But again, it's not a surprise. I mean, we hear that President Biden is going very soon to Saudi Arabia as well. It's almost like all regional power and international power are going to give the knee to MBS, basically, because of the oil prices and the energy crisis right now.
That's what I hope to get your thoughts on next. As you say, just next month, President Biden set to visit Saudi Arabia for the first time. And I wonder what you think this signals about, particularly the prince's relationship with the international community.
It says if you murder an American resident and a very prominent member of the International Press Corps in an embassy in a sovereign country, you can get away with it. and no political dissident and any journalist who cares about freedom of speech and stand truth to power or is safe or are safe anywhere else in the world, and all can be forgiven because of politics, power, money, and interest. This is the message. And to see it coming from my own president, President Biden, it is extremely disappointing. I voted for him, and I'm quite disappointed in him right now, and in American interest as of this point.
We've got just a minute left. Can I ask you how you would see justice served for your friend Jamal Khashoggi?
Well, we as his friends and colleagues, we're still campaigning for him. There are many initiatives. There is a court case now filed by his fiancée, Hatice Cengiz, in Istanbul to try to reverse the Turkish court orders of sending the case to Saudi Arabia. We're trying other cases in the U.S. This is what we can do. But what we can do more is to keep his memory alive and stand up for all injustices that's happening around the world and around the Middle East, and keep supporting the freedom of the press. You have a very important role, and we need to keep seeing you standing truth to power and saying truth to power, and standing for freedom of the press.
Okay,
we need that.
We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us. Mohammed Okda there, a close friend of Jamal Khashoggi, speaking to Times Radio tonight.
Across the UK.